Hi, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about what's happening in the Russian economy and specifically to talk about the peace process, because if you've been following the channel, you'll know that the Russian economy is in very dire situation at the moment because it's continuing to see a reduction in the amount of revenue that it's earning from its oil and gas exports, because the two biggest oil companies in Russia have now been hit with direct sanctions. And we're seeing countries such as India, China, and Turkey pulling back from buying oil from Russia. So if this continues for the whole of 2026, then Russia is soon going to run out of revenue, but it's continuing to spend heavily on the war in Ukraine, and that just isn't sustainable. You can't balance the books if you've got falling revenue and you continue spending. It's a bit like your own personal situation. If you constantly spend, if you lose your job, but you're still spending as if you had one, then at some point you're going to be made bankrupt. Now, at the moment, Russia is living off its reserves and it's run down its cash reserves, but it does have a lot of gold. And if you've been following the news, you'll know that gold's trading at an all-time high. So now's a good time to sell gold if you have to. So Russia is doing that. It's silently reducing its gold reserves to keep the war going. But we've got the peace negotiations going on, and Donald Trump is doing his best to try to bring a conclusion to the war. So he's had meetings with the leader of Ukraine, and he's constantly having phone calls with Vladimir Putin. However, following the recent round of meetings, it's now been announced that Russia claims that Ukraine launched drone attacks directly on one of the residencies of Vladimir Putin over the festive period.
Russia claims Ukraine launched 91 drones in a mass attack on the Putin residence. They would have had to fly more than 400 miles through heavily defended airspace en route to the target, a sprawling complex on the northeastern shore of Lake Valdai, itself guarded by 12 nearby air defense batteries. There are no local reports of any explosions on the ground or in the air. And Russia's defense ministry says only 18 drones were intercepted over the entire Novgorod region last night.
Now, we've talked a lot about Ukrainian drones, and the technology has improved enormously over the past 3.5 years or so. So it is feasible for Ukraine to actually target a particular residency if it's wanting to launch drone attacks. But as mentioned in that report, these drones had to travel 450 miles over what is probably quite a well-defended area, because if it's one of Vladimir Putin's residencies, then he's going to make sure that he's got protection when he's there. Now, interestingly, Russia, as a result of this announcement, has now said that it's going to pull back from the peace process. So it's saying that this has disrupted those negotiations. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claimed that Ukraine launched the large-scale drone attack on President Vladimir Putin's residence. Now, this is unusual because Lavrov doesn't usually report on drone strikes because they fall within the realm of the defense ministry, but he's in the foreign ministry. But he said that 91 long-range drones had been used to target the residency and that there were no injuries or damage, and that Russian air defences destroyed all of the drones before they reached the site. And I'll show you some footage in a moment that's been released by Russia that claims that it's actually captured one of these drones. But Lavrov went on to say on an audio post on Telegram that such reckless actions will not go unanswered. Targets for retaliatory strikes and the timing of their execution by the Russian armed forces have been determined. He went on to say that Russia would revise its negotiating position in Ukraine peace talks following what he described as a terrorist attack, but added that it does not intend to withdraw from the negotiation process with the United States. Now, interestingly, in response to this, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky called Lavrov's allegations fake and extremely dangerous, and argued that Moscow was trying to sabotage the diplomatic efforts to end the war and justify continued strikes on Ukraine. Now, following on from that statement, Russia has released some footage of the drone that it claims it's taken down. So this drone was hit in the tail, so it remained intact, and they've shown this footage basically trying to prove that this drone was made in Ukraine. And in addition to releasing this footage, they also released some detailed footage from the Russian military showing the defense that they put up against these drones. So you can see here the mobile vehicle that Russia is using to take out drones. So this has got a radar on the top of it, and it's armed with lots of rocket launchers to basically take out these drones. And then we've got 2 personnel in the vehicle itself who are constantly monitoring where the drones are, and then they're trying to take them out. Now, in terms of the response from the USA, Donald Trump said this.
I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry about it.
President Trump meeting the Israeli Prime Minister yesterday, challenged on whether US intelligence had any evidence it had happened.
You're saying maybe the attack didn't take place. It's possible too, I guess, but President Putin told me this morning it did.
Now, I think it's interesting that the press in the USA are suggesting that this attack could have been fabricated, it could be fake, basically created by Russia to disrupt the peace process. However, Donald Trump is saying that he believes President Putin because he told him that it was launched by Ukraine. Now, just before we get into the details as to what's going on here, I wanted to ask anybody that hasn't subscribed yet to please hit that subscribe button. It doesn't take you a second, doesn't cost you anything, but it does help me with the algorithm and also puts a smile on my face. And also, I wanted to talk to you about my competition, whereby you could win either £250,000 in cash or my beach house, which is located close to one of the best beaches in the whole of the UK. It's basically a stone's throw from that beach. You can go down there and have some fish and chips, a pint of beer, basically have a walk along the front. It's a really nice place to hang out. This is another way of supporting me and the channel, a bit more fun than just sending me a YouTube super thanks or buying me a coffee. So if you're interested in that, have a look at the QR code on the screen now. You can scan that with your phone. It'll take you straight through. Or look at the link in the description below. Tickets are priced at £5 and you can get some bonus tickets if you buy more than one. So have a look at that. It's a bit of fun. As I mentioned at the start of today's video, the Russian economy is under severe pressure at the moment. So you would have expected, given the circumstances, that Russia would be looking for some sort of out of the war of Ukraine, looking for some sort of peace process to basically be able to draw a line under it and start putting the budget back together, because as it stands at the moment, Russia is spending far too much money. It's not earning enough money because of the sanctions and what's going on with regards to oil and gas, but it's continuing to spend very heavily. And it looks like the peace process is getting closer because Donald Trump is doing his best to put the 2 parties together and agree some form of settlement. There's a lot of pressure on Ukraine to basically give up all of the land that Russia is currently occupying. And it looks like Ukraine might be coming round to that compromise, basically deciding that enough is enough and to let Russia keep what it's got. Well, that's certainly what the USA is pushing it to do at the moment. However, what we've seen in today's video is that Russia is now saying that even though the peace process looks like it's coming towards a conclusion, they're now pulling out because Ukraine launched some drones against one of Vladimir Putin's residences. And you think, is that really a good justification? Because let's face it, these 2 countries are at war at the moment. So when you're at war, surely anything goes to a certain extent. Well, interestingly, there is an unwritten rule when nations are at war that they won't go after the head of each other's country. So I don't know who wrote that unwritten rule, but apparently that's the way it is. And if you do go after the head of the opposition, then that means that you yourself become game. So maybe this is leading up towards some form of attack on Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine as a sort of tit-for-tat response. Certainly the Russian foreign minister said that the Russian troops have been briefed in terms of what their retaliation is going to be in respect of this. And if they're going for a like for like, then you'd expect that they're going to try to do something against the leader of Ukraine. But taking a step back from all of that and ignoring all the tit-for-tat side of things, is it really a justification for Russia to pull out of the peace process because some drones made their way towards one of the residencies that, let's face it, Vladimir Putin probably wasn't in at that time anyway, because he's got lots of places that he can go, and I'm sure it's kept under wraps as to where he is at any one time. Is that really a justification for Russia to pull out? I'm not sure it is. I think this looks like an excuse from Russia's point of view because they're the ones who are pushing forward in Ukraine. They're the ones who've actually occupied lots of land that was formerly part of Ukraine. So they're actually the aggressor in this situation. So to turn around when 40 or 50 or 90 drones suddenly are found in Russian territory and say, hang on a minute, if you're sending drones over into Russia, then we're not interested in any peace settlement. And in fact, we're going to start bombing all of your cities even harder. I don't think that really stands up as an argument. You can't really accept that. So I don't think this is justifiable in terms of Russia claiming why they're now pulling back from the peace process or why they're going to make Ukraine pay. Now, I wanted to leave you today with something that I think might put a smile on your face. I will leave you with my ultimate smile at the end, so don't worry about that. That is coming. But this is a quote from a Ukrainian woman who was asked whether or not she believes that President Putin is interested in peace.
I don't believe Putin will accept any peace deal. He's such a... He doesn't want to give anything up. He wants to grab everything. This is why I don't believe anything will come out of the peace talks.
Okay, so that's her view on the situation. Anyway, I will leave you with that. So thank you very much for watching this video all the way through to the end. Thank you to everybody that's supporting me. If you bought me a coffee, send me a YouTube super thanks, or signed up as a Patreon, buy me a coffee member or YouTube member. Thank you so much for that. Thank you to everybody that has bought a ticket so far in my competition. If you haven't done, then there's still time left to do it. Have a look at the QR code on the screen now or the link in the description below, and good luck if you do that. And here's something to put a smile on your face.